In this episode of the Think Wildlife podcast, we are joined by Moumita Chakraborty to talk about one of India's most fascinating mammals, the red panda. Moumita is an Eastern Himalayan consultant at the Global Tiger Forum. She is also a Nat Geo Photo Arc Edge Fellow who pursued her PhD at the Wildlife Institute of India studying red pandas in Sikkim. She has also hosted a webinar for Think Wildlife Foundation in the past talking about her work. In this episode, we discuss the Red Panda and their conservation in India. Do tune in to the podcast and do not forget to subscribe on whichever platform you are listening on. If you decide to opt for the optional paid subscription on Substack or YouTube, 30% of the revenue from this episode will be donated to the Red Panda Network, an organization which extensively works on the conservation of red pandas. Now, to the episode. Welcome, Mohammed, to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on today. So, what got you interested in studying red pandas?
It's a long story. Basically, I have started my career in wildlife back 2016, and I was more into birds and mammals as well. But during 2017, I visited Singalila. Due like I actually my husband has a expeditions tours there for red pandas. So I've been there to see all this at that time. So I was more into that because very few research have been done so far, and there are very few people knows about red pandas till that date. And I searched a lot. Once I see the species, I thought we can do something about the particular species because they're lesser known species and no one knows about the species. I mean, very few people are like, they tell, oh, really? Red panda is found in India? Really? And they told me, no, it's not found in India. You can found this red pandas in China. So there was lots more confusions and doubts in red pandas and all. So I thought to start to initiate my research in that particular field. And another reason was like people from wildlife mostly interested in large carnivore than the small carnivore. So that was a particular reason to initiate my work or my journey or my PhD on that particular species. So that was my journey since 2018, and after that, yes, I registered my PhD with Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, and simultaneously I applied many projects, and then I got ZSLH fellowship. Also, once I got this project, it was a huge opportunity like for me to understand all of this together. And yes, I started my journey through the PhD, through the conservation work, back to I think 2018.
So, what has been your most memorable red panda sighting?
Of course, the first one, like at the initial phase, like initially I was seeing it in Singalila National Park. So I was amazed, totally amazed to see the species. But again, like each and every sighting is like gives me happiness, because the species itself is so charming. So once I went for the trekking, it was so hard. But once I see those species, I literally like feel so happy. My first sighting was in my field in Sikkim. It was in 2019, November, I remember. And it was in North Sikkim. My first sighting was in North Sikkim. Yes, during my study period. And after that, I have seen 12, 13 times in wild in Sikkim. What is the current conservation status of red pandas and where are they distributed? Current conservation status is endangered as per the IUCN Red List, and it is distributed among the 5 different countries from Nepal, India, Bhutan, China, and Myanmar. In India, we have India holds in 3 different states, which is Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and West Bengal. So currently, I'm working in Sikkim, but yes, to some extent, I work for red pandas in West Bengal as well. Why are red pandas such an important species for the ecosystem? Yeah. So red panda is a habitat specialist species, because there are few features or parameters, ecological parameters, you can say, that red panda prefers. So few things I'm just talking about. One is the elevation ranges. Okay. So red panda mostly prefers the temperate habitat. And within temperate habitat, there are two different areas, which is two different habitat, actually distinguished habitat, which is temperate broadleaf forest and mixed coniferous temperate forest. So which start from 1800 to 2800. So red panda mostly prefer that zone. Apart from that, also few of the areas like in subalpines habitat, that also red panda prefers. Okay, but again, the vegetation is completely different in temperate forest and subalpine forest. So yes, I'll tell a little bit later. But now coming to the ecological point of view, one is elevation, second one is slope is very much important. Wherever the sun directly hits to the slope, so red panda mostly prefers that particular slope. Again, the forest patches, okay, where red panda can easily roost. Okay, few of the like trees named like some of the trees of rhododendrons, maple, okay, like soar, which is quercus species. So that red panda mostly preferred for their roosting purpose. And also the bamboo. Everyone knows about the bamboo because red panda mostly eats bamboos. So bamboo is also very much essential for red pandas. Apart from that, red panda is very shy animals. So red panda prefers a water source just nearby to his roosting places. So yes, altogether, it's a habitat parameters for red pandas. And although I'm working for the habitat ecology of red pandas, so I'm more into that.
How prevalent is the threat of poaching for red pandas, particularly in India?
In Indian landscape, I would say in Sikkim, there is very less. Okay, the poaching is very less in Sikkim. Somewhere in Arunachal, that is also I've heard. I never walk in Arunachal, so I can't give the proper comments. But yes, I have heard few of the areas red pandas being poached in Arunachal Pradesh, but not in Sikkim and not West Bengal so far.
What are some of the other threats faced by red pandas in India?
Yes, during my studies, so I have seen like the forest destructions, and the another important thing I supposed to mention, especially in India, so the protected forests are majorly regulated by the Indian Wildlife Act, right? But the unprotected forest, which means in Sikkim it is called reserve forest, where the people are mostly living nearby the reserve forest, and people are also using some NTFPs from this forest. There is very less regulations and norms in these areas, and in regards to the particular species, they don't understand there is a forest or it is protected areas, right? So this is distributed all around in protected and reserve forest. So I would say for red pandas, habitat destructions or overutilizations of the forest patches by people is mostly a big threat for red pandas. Also, in a broader term, another one, the climate change, definitely it actually ruins their like the pattern, the life cycle of the species, because during my study I have seen the altitudinal shifting of the species. So during summer, people like this red pandas actually goes a little up, and also winter it climbs down towards like in 2500 2000 to 2300 meter altitude. Although the temperature rises, because in some part of Sikkim I have seen like North Sikkim, like even the temperatures goes around 12 to 13 degree, which was which is absurd, because in northern part of Sikkim is mostly in the subalpine alpine region, and maybe that could be another aspect for any species, not only red pandas, which actually harms their habitat, their life cycle, their distributions.
Talk about the work you did on your PhD about red pandas.
Yeah, so basically my PhD objectives are to understand the baseline status and distribution pattern in Sikkim Himalayan landscape, including protected areas and non-protected areas. So initially, in back 2018, I was working with WWF India, and which was for me, it was a learning phase because I was new to that field and I was learning many things at that time. So initially with WWF, I have started working in non-protected areas for the first time. So after finishing all this stuff there, I started writing my own PhD, and I understand non-protected areas are very much crucial in terms of red pandas distribution, in terms of threats understanding. So my objectives is dealing with to understand the clear picture, the clear scene of distribution and status of red pandas, both of these areas, and comparing, is there any particular parameters which actually like which actually push the red pandas like distribution patterns or not. Second objective is to understand their feeding ecology, again in protected and non-protected areas all around Sikkim. Third is to understand the people perception towards the species, like whether they're aware of this, the species significance. And another most important thing, although I'm working in the non-protected areas, so people are mostly using some of the plants, their habitats as NTFP collection, but they're using those places, So whether that actually harms towards species distributions or not. So yes, I just comparing the species prefer trees and the people prefers plants or trees for their own purpose, and whether it was like similar or not, that I was actually looking towards it. Yeah.
So, what is being done for the conservation of red pandas in India?
Basically, my H project objectives to helps in Red Panda management plan. So there was a segment for Red Panda blueprint, Red Panda survival blueprint, and on behalf of AGE, we actually established a Red Panda survival blueprint, and we have submitted to the Forest Department for their management plan. And again, this forest officials are still in the process to publish a Red Panda management plan in Sikkim. So yes, it was a little contribution from my side during my H project. So yes, there maybe in coming days, they will come up with some sort of management plan for red pandas in Sikkim Himalayan landscape. But I'm not aware of the Arunachal Pradesh and West Bengal. I don't think there is a particular species management plan is there.
And how can individuals contribute to red panda conservation and research?
Any individual. First of all, yes. So there are many things, like people are still contributing, and I would say the local people, apart from the tourist, the local people are they plays a vital role for the conservation, because once the people understands the significance of the species, once they value the species, so that once they understand the role of the species in ecosystem, I think only the local people can help a lot towards conservation. And apart from that, I think the people, I think some researchers, scientists, they're continuously rigorously working for conservation, maybe to create some the proper methodology to understand their behavioral ecology, and contributes for conservation management plan. Definitely, I think that could be a big help. And currently, as I already discussed, some of the tourism or expeditions, people are also engaging to some extent. I think that also helps a lot, because those peoples are rely on forest, they're into tourism. Once they convert themselves into tourism, I think the usage, the like the need of the forest will be less, and automatically it can be revived. So I think all this together can help for conservation.
And what have been some of the most prominent challenges you have faced in your short research career and conservation career?
The major challenges, because red panda is distributed in, in the Himalayan terrain, and as a researcher, as although is a rugged terrain, it's very much difficult to climb it properly, to trek, to reach that particular point where red panda is distributed. So altogether, it is very much hectic for anybody, I guess. And again, it is a rare species, and it camouflaged really well in the jungle, in the forest. So it's very, very difficult to find. And that's why I only encountered 13 times. I told you, 12, 13 times I encountered. So it is quite difficult. And initial stage, it was a little difficulties to work with the people, because, yes, so it's really challenging to convince them and to shift them their ideology to this ideology. So it is a little bit challenging, but nowadays they're really they're understanding the values. They're also, like, people are also engaging in the research in every each and every project, and we are also encouraging people, train people, how to use all these techniques, tools and techniques, how to convert them from a layman to a little bit a citizen scientist, So I guess earlier it was a little bit challenging, but for now it is quite relaxable for me, because yes, people are understanding the values of species, their landscapes, so they are shift into conservation.
So that was the final question I had for you today. Thank you so much for your time.
We have reached the end of this episode of the Think Wildlife podcast. If you are still listening, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast and learned something new about conservation. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the episode and don't forget to share and subscribe. Before we end the podcast, I would like to share another podcast on Indian wildlife called The Thing About Wildlife by Ishika Ramakrishna. Also, for those who would like to learn more about conservation in India, I have attached a link to 3 books on Indian wildlife, which I highly recommend. One is a field guide to the mammals of India by Vivek Menon, which is by far one of the most detailed field guides I have seen from anywhere in the world. The second is titled At the Feet of Living Things, written by the various conservationists at the Nature Conservation Foundation. It covers 25 years of the organization's research, ranging from the conservation of snow leopards in Spiti Valley to rainforest restoration in Annamalai and dugong conservation in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The final is a 4-part series by Mr. H.S. Pabla, a former Indian Forest Service officer, which provides a very in-depth analysis of the state of India's conservation and the way forward. It covers species reintroduction, wildlife tourism, the forest rights, and poaching. He also talks about his time as an officer heading various conservation projects in Madhya Pradesh, ranging from the reintroduction of Barasinga and blackbuck to the gore and tackling the panda poaching crisis. And with that, we end this episode of Think Wildlife Podcast. Thank you once again.